The major challenges that we set out in the book are really threefold. One is simply managing money on a day-to-day basis. Virtually all the households that we examined in the financial diary research were living on incomes averaging $2 per day per person or less. But the important thing to remember about that is that that's just an average. You may on average be earning $2 a day, but it doesn't come in regularly, day by day, $2. You may earn $10 one day and then there may be a gap and so on. So you need some way of being able to make sure you spread whatever income comes in over the intervening days when you don't have income. And that's obviously absolutely essential just to keeping the basics of your household going, because you need to be able to make sure that there is food on the table every day, not just on the days when income comes in. You need to be able to make sure that when your little girl has an eye infection, you can take her along to the pharmacy and get an antibiotic eye drop immediately, rather than having to wait until the next chunk of income comes in. Otherwise, you're at risk of that little girl's very simple little infection in a few years' time turning her blind and blighting her chances for the rest of her life. So managing money on a day-to-day basis, and for that they need instruments that are close at hand, that they can access at almost any time, that are very flexible in the amounts of money that can be taken as a loan or withdrawn as a saving. The second one is managing emergencies. Emergencies come along unexpectedly and they need to be able to patch together the finance needed to overcome the immediate financial consequences of the emergencies. We found when we were doing these year-long studies that enormous numbers of the households are subject to emergencies. In Bangladesh and India, for example, we found that something like half the households had an illness in the household that seriously damaged their economic flows during the year. We found in Bangladesh that 40% of our sample lost their homes at one stage or other during the year, either through them being bulldozed by over-enthusiastic governments or through floods or cyclones or fire, another very common one. We found that in South Africa, 80% of the families we dealt with had to find some way of financing a funeral. Funerals are a very expensive festival in South Africa, an enormous absorber of family finance, and 4 out of 5 of the families we dealt with there had to face up to that kind of emergency. So, finding ways, finding vehicles in which to save up to deal with these emergencies, finding vehicles that allow them to borrow to deal with these emergencies, these are very important. And the third big challenge is just simply assembling large chunks of money for the bigger expenditures that you want to make during your life to enhance your life. The housing, the marriage, the education expenses, the training expenses, the larger assets that will either make life more comfortable or will lead you to increased income. So forming large lump sums. And that's a very important one because that's one that the informal sector, which is where most of the activity we tracked takes place, is not very good at doing. For the simple reason that in the informal sector, it's rare to find money lenders, for example, who are willing to advance very large lump sums of money to poor people. It's rare to find savings up clubs that well enough manage to last long enough to assemble really large lump sums of money, the kinds of lump sums of money that you would need 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 years worth of saving to achieve. So those three: managing money on a day-to-day basis, handling emergencies of one sort or another, and building usefully large lump sums of money.
So what type of financial products do poor people need from MFIs?
They need products that are able to handle those 3 major areas that I've just described. They need a financial tool that's close at hand that will allow them to handle their money on a day-to-day basis. So the kinds of products that are excellent at doing this are obviously open passbook savings, but just opening an account won't be enough. They have to be open passbook savings that are sufficiently close and that you can access sufficiently frequently and are sufficiently affordable to make them usable. They need to be immediately close at hand and frequent, which is why so many poor people save at home. So the MFIs can think of themselves as competing with the clay money box at home, doing better than a poor person can by simply putting his or her money into a clay pot at home. And then building these large lump sums. MFIs need to be able to find ways of offering poor people long-term savings regimes in which they really can save up good-sized chunks of money, even if it's going to take them 5 or 10 or 15 years to do it. And again, just opening, say, a fixed deposit account will not do that. You need to, again, observe these very important principles of frequency and proximity and flexibility so that the poor person can get as much of their spare capacity, take as much out of their daily or weekly or monthly cash flow as is humanly possible and get it stored away into this thing so that it will build up over the years. And then the third one, obviously, finding some way in which they can deal with emergencies. Now, the standard financial service response to how you deal with an emergency is insurance. And we're all seeing that micro-insurance is a very rapidly advancing area of microfinance at the moment, and I applaud that. But I do think it will be a long time before poor people are able and willing to pay for a whole range of insurance policies aimed at the various different kinds of risks that they take. So in the meantime, MFIs must make sure that they have savings products and loan products that are responsive enough to respond quickly to emergencies that their clients suffer.